Today, we're looking at a huge issue in Ghana, one that suggests the scales of justice can be tipped by something as simple as where you happen to live.
I want you to just imagine for a second. You're in a courtroom, your entire future is on the line, but the words that will decide your fate, they're in a language you just don't speak. What do? This isn't just a thought experiment. For a lot of people, it's a terrifying reality.
And that very situation brings us to a personal story that really puts a human face on this whole problem. It's a case that shows just how badly things can go when justice isn't accessible to everyone.
So, let's set the scene. We're in the Accra Circuit Court. A man named Dauda Mohammed Nazir is standing before a judge. He's accused in a violent dispute, and he doesn't have a lawyer. He pleads guilty. You'd think that's the end of the story, right? Well, not even close.
Here's the crucial detail. The entire proceeding, all the complicated legal charges being read out, it was all done in English. But Mr. Nazir, he speaks Hausa. He literally entered a plea to charges he couldn't properly understand.
And the stakes here were incredibly high. Pleading guilty meant he was looking at a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison. All based on that one word, guilty. His fate looked pretty much sealed.
But then, on the day he was supposed to be sentenced, everything changed. A lawyer, Beatrice Anangfio, stepped into the picture. She argued that her client never actually understood what he was pleading to. And that made all the difference. The court hit pause on the sentence to take another look. It's a perfect example of how critical legal help can be.
Mr. Nazir's story is a powerful, personal look at a much bigger, systemic problem. It really makes you ask, how did he end up in that position to begin with? Well, believe it or not, the answer can be found on a map. Let's just look at the raw numbers for a second, because this is where things get really wild. According to the Ghana Bar Association, this is how many active lawyers there are in Ghana's capital region, Greater Accra. 6,484. That's a lot of lawyers.
Now hold that first number in your head, and let's look at the entire Upper East region. The number of lawyers there? 27, not 2,700, just 27. The difference is absolutely staggering.
When you see it laid out like this, you realize it's not just a small gap, it's a chasm. On one side, you have thousands of legal experts. On the other, a number so small it barely even shows up on the chart. What this really means is that your access to justice in Ghana is basically a postcode lottery.
Okay, so you might be thinking, fine, private lawyers are all clustered in the capital. But isn't there a safety net? What about public defenders for people who can't afford help? Well, this is where the problem gets even worse.
You see, the Legal Aid Commission was set up way back in 1997 to solve this exact issue. But let's fast forward to today. For the entire country, there are only 34 public defenders. And get this, if you're facing criminal charges, the odds are even slimmer. Only 12 of them are criminal specialists. 12.
And here's the real-world impact of that shortage. And this is coming straight from the director of the Public Defenders Division himself. He basically says that a lot of these cases shouldn't even make it to court. With the right advice early on, they could be resolved before they ever get that far.
So, if you're living outside the capital and you can't get a public defender, what's left? You have to hire a private lawyer. But that leads us straight into the next massive hurdle, the absolutely staggering cost.
To really get this, you just have to look at the money. The average person in Ghana makes somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 cedis a month. Now look at this. A single consultation with even a junior lawyer can cost you up to 2,000 cedis. A senior lawyer, that could be 4,000.
So what does that actually mean? It means for a lot of people, the cost of just talking to a lawyer for an hour, not even hiring them for the whole case, can completely wipe out their income for an entire month. Justice, it turns out, comes with a price tag that most people just can't afford.
Okay, so the picture we've painted is pretty bleak, but it's not hopeless. The source material doesn't just point out all the problems, it also looks at some very real solutions. So how do we start to close this justice gap?
Well, it boils down to two main ideas. First, you have to seriously expand the legal aid scheme. That means getting more funding to hire more lawyers, and this is the key part, sending them to the regions that are so underserved. And second, support paralegals. These are non-lawyers who can be trained to give basic, essential legal advice in rural areas where you just can't find a lawyer.
And that brings us right back to the beginning. Putting these solutions into action isn't just about fixing a system. It's about making sure that real people like Dauda Mohammed Nazir, never have to face a confusing and scary legal system all on their own. So, in the end, we're left with a very simple but profound question. We've seen how a person's geography can pretty much dictate their chance at a fair hearing. And it leaves us all to wonder, should justice really depend on where you live?